session. I'm going to ask Tim Harry to lead us in prayer.
Lord, bless this day, bless this meeting, bless us that we remain productive and that we do your service. Bless everybody as we go home and as we travel. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Y'all join me in the pledge allegiance to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Item number 4, consider minutes of October 3rd, October 21st, and the 30th. 3 meetings last month.
I have a couple of items. On the meeting of I guess the only thing I have, on the meeting of October 30th, I think Peggy Dean attended that meeting, and I think she should be added there. She joined us in executive session, as I recall. Mm-hmm. And then talks about project logical location and says what action we took, but it really doesn't say why. And I think it's important that not only we convey in our minutes to the public what we did, but why we did it. And I think we could go back to the recording, and it's pretty short. I think Dr. Kirk made a comment, and I think I made a comment, and just if we could include those, that it's like I say, pretty short and sweet. If we could add that to the minutes.
Okay.
With that, I would make a motion to approve all those minutes with the October 30th being amended as we discussed.
Okay. Do I have a second? Second by Larry Robinson. All in favor?
Aye.
And passes unanimous. Okay. Wait, contractor reports number 5, Tom Mansky.
Good afternoon. I would give you a page number for ours, but I don't have them on my copy, so I can't give you a page number. But it's in your packet. Like usual, we start out with our projects. Project Van Zant, that's active right now. That's a new project. Their representatives from both the company and the consulting firm actually were here most of the day yesterday and met with some of the taxing entities and some others around town. And we put together meetings that they specifically requested us to put together. That is a very good looking project that I think hopefully will be coming back soon to you to let you know that it's successful. So far they actually haven't asked for ODC incentives, and it's not something because of the because of the low employment that we put out there on the table. But there are other things that make Odessa very attractive, or Ector County. They're actually in the ETJ and not in the city. And so that one's moving forward. Project Tex West. Tracy has been working on that and has developed arthritis in her fingers because of the amount of emails back and forth on that thing. I'm copied on everything, and I don't know if we've had a project with that many emails before. And it's on I would say daily, it's on an hourly basis. But their consulting firms and I say firms because they're actually using 2, are extremely inquisitive, I guess, about everything going on. Moving down, the others we're just trying to reach out to them and get them moving. We haven't. Project Far East, we have to take off of here, and I apologize. As you know, that was the one with some infrastructure in East Odessa to assist with some light industry, commercial development, and workforce housing, and that was passed, I believe, at our last meeting. And as I keep moving, we're waiting to hear on Project Molecule, what's going to happen there, waiting for an update on Kingmaker, and then we're doing a little back and forth with Lone Star Lithium. That's the battery manufacturer. We've been emailing, trying to get some things moving on that, but unfortunately they haven't been. But they are telling us that they are moving from their end of things up in the Northeast. So what that means, I don't know. And then when you keep moving, you'll see our business retention and expansion visits after that. Probably a little slower than normal, just simply because we're getting into the time of year where it's hard all year long to get people to sit down with us, but it gets especially hard when you get into October, November, December. And then you see the economic indicators moving forward, and then our social media. Most times I actually forget to mention these to you. I was pretty impressed with on social media, and I'm not into a lot of that, but when you look at Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, the amount of new followers for the month of October, I thought that was kind of significant. X doesn't really move much anymore. You can strike your own opinion on that for whatever it's worth. And then following that, you will notice that we put our budget versus actual and profit and loss and year to date following that. And I know I've gone through these fairly quickly because I just drove back from Midland at about 85 miles an hour. I hope there's not a police officer in here. But would happy to answer any specific questions you have at this time. As mentioned, I know y'all talked about logical location. That's obviously something we're not working on right now, but I will tell you that we are looking into and researching and talking to the right people to discuss some type of thing of that nature in the future, but I don't have anything for you at this meeting.
Okay, any questions?
Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Okay, current leader, Christy Calico.
Good afternoon. So just a couple of updates. All of the analytics are in the packet. I included a few extra things because I know that we do have a couple new board members. So just walking through the high points on the website, wanted to point out that we are working on new landing pages for the construction industry as well as professional services. So we did a target industry analysis last year, and these were kind of the last two on the list. We've been rolling those in. We had manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, some of the things that you would expect, but these two were new to us. So construction's an easy one. Professional services a little tougher. I met with staff last week, and we decided probably the best way to go after this when we know that we have a need for those professional services for accountants for different positions. But I think what we're going to do is put a landing page on the website to start that just says, here's what we have, here's some of the data, give us a call. It's really difficult for us to market to individuals, you know, as an ODC board. So most of our emphasis will be in the other industries. We do have new campaigns. I have copies of just the print ads at the back of the packet, but we did develop new campaigns last month and the month before. I was on vacation last month during the meeting, but we have some on construction, and then we also did sort of a spin-off of manufacturing to really address medical manufacturing again. So we're doing some test campaigns that just started this week so that we can kind of see how construction performs and how medical manufacturing performs, looking at some of those companies. But I'm looking at those as more of a test to kind of come back next month and say, hey, these are performing well, or we need to adjust. So those are the two new ones. The other industries are running as they have been in the past. One thing I wanted to mention to the board, I've talked to staff and I've talked to Mr. Kirk about this a little bit, but the logo, we've talked about updating the logo for a long time. It still gets tough for people to understand that it's the Odessa Development Corporation. We just want them to call and know that it's from Odessa. So we're working on some things to bring and show you that will address that, but we'll take a look at that and see what we think. And I know we've just spent time, money, energy on a new ad campaign. we are not going back and planning to redo that ad campaign. I think that it still has a lot of life. We've only been running it less than a year. This would simply just be a change out if we move forward. So I wanted to mention that to the board. Publications, the plan for next year. We ran, I wouldn't say heavily, but heavily for ODC. We were in the trade publications. There are a lot of industry publications like Site Selection Magazine, Business Facilities, but they are hard, paper magazines that are mailed to site selectors and C-suite executives. And we felt it was important to have a presence. That's kind of why we started the new campaign. And we want to keep that presence, but at a reduced level in 2025. So I think we talked to Tom. He mentioned maybe doing the really standout publications. The Governor's Cup is one of them. We have some special Texas issues. So I think we'll just be a little pickier next year, and then we'll probably take some of those dollars and put it on their digital platforms because we can track them.
Christy,
Yeah.
is it hard to determine readership in those, or
It's not hard to determine readership.
circulation, I guess? or something?
I have all the circulation numbers that I could show, and I mean they still have decent circulations, and I think that they're going to the right people. I think the dilemma is I put QR codes on them. QR codes get a few scans. I'm not going to come back and say, it's not like I'm coming with hundreds and thousands of scans. They're not. Sometimes they're single digits. It's just really hard to come back and report the effectiveness. I do think there's something to be said for being in those publications that your audience is seeing, and it's more of an awareness thing. But I think we've done a pretty good job of that this year. I do have the numbers, but what I'm kind of struggling with is I think I can show you more on digital to see what's moving than I can in print, and that's I have a gut feeling, and I think it's good to have that awareness, but I can't prove to you that X number of people are reading that or seeing that ad. So that's kind of what we're thinking is more of a combo for next year and looking at that because we're having really good results on our digital campaigns. And anytime we see dips, we refresh the creative or we run something new and those numbers go right back up. We had a really good month last month. So that's kind of some of the rationale for why we're going that way. Couple of other things. We did a very brief annual report that is running in a chamber publication, and it's also going to be put on the website. Our thought is to also run that in the newspaper, just kind of here's what this board has done in the last year. Just kind of some basic recaps, not the big report, bullet points. These are the things that have happened, over the last year with ODC. So in an effort to kind of let the public know more and more what ODC does. Which also leads to a couple of other things. So I've mentioned for a few months that we were pursuing a Channel 9 series that they're going to do, that we pay for this, where they come and film it. But it also airs kind of as a news segment that we have, a little bit of control over. One thing we want to do on that is we want to talk about the things that the board is doing, talk about what ODC is, what the process is for a business who's coming in and, wanting to expand or retain workers. What do they do? Where do they go? The step-by-step process. So we're looking at using it to do that, taking the steps, talking about what ODC can do for the businesses in the community, and then taking some of the businesses that have benefited from ODC funding and interviewing them as well. So that is kind of the next step on Channel 9. And we've just now started sending those topics. I kind of wanted to let the board know what we're thinking, and then we'll start working on those to probably start airing in January. Also on the video side, we just finished yesterday some new video clips. So talking to a lot of the entities, the healthcare, our OC, UTPB, those videos have performed well, where we interview different people and talk about how their entity works with ODC and what that means for businesses coming in or internally. So we have some new ones that we'll be editing to use on social and our digital campaigns. Those have been running for 18 months. They were getting a little tired. We interviewed some of the same people for those, but I think those will be good, and those will be coming soon too. Other than that, the company who did the target industry analysis, they came to us with some more information about how they could use, and I hadn't really thought this direction. They have got some ins with podcasts, with publications, some different, it's almost a PR push with a group who has a niche, who can kind of get some of our content into some of these sites. And it's something that has been difficult for me. I mean, we're one person sitting here, but they have some of those relationships. So they are sending a proposal. In fact, I have a call with them in the morning, but we're going to look at that and possibly putting some of the funds that we've done for digital there and see how that works. Because I think the more we can get, good news stories, when Liberty had the groundbreaking, when Bass Pro Shops had the things, we've got some really good things going on. And I want to use those avenues to get those things out there. And some that they have, quite frankly, that they've got those relationships that I don't. And so we would use those. So that's kind of the newest thing. So that's what I have, unless there's any questions. Yes.
On your video impressions.
Yes.
I mean, the big numbers like 335,
Yeah.
271, and then there's some paltry numbers.
Yes.
But what triggers the impressions? What exact trigger? I mean, somebody looking at it or changing pages. Where does that count?
So it depends. Like some of the impressions that we're sending, it's literally what they're serving to that group. The bigger numbers to look at are the engagement numbers and who's engaging. Those are much smaller numbers. But it tells us who's paying attention and who's getting involved with it. And we take those each month and we look at them, and Brittany in particular looks at those and then kind of adjusts everything, because the ones who aren't performing, that's not working, right? So we change them. I don't know if that answered your question, but we look more at the engagement numbers. The impressions, I mean, we're serving.
I don't know if it's triggered by a keystroke, a page.
No, we're paying for those. We're paying for the number of impressions that get sent out. And so those big numbers, we're guaranteed a certain number. And sometimes they'll overperform and we'll get more. And so those are big numbers and they look impressive. The engagement numbers are really more telling to us than those.
Second question.
Sure.
Is your prices, are they coming down after the election?
Are my prices coming down?
Have to pay the media.
For those, honestly, I have not noticed any, but I you know what, I don't know that I've actually made a placement since then, so
Are
I
they
can.
knocking on your door again?
No, I haven't seen any. I think everybody just was kind of silent. We'll see.
I mean, do you do any radio? And I know a lot of people don't listen to radio, but in years past, I had lots of coverage that was actually on AM and FM,
Mhm.
tiny little stations. I mean, like Sonora and here and there, because there's so many people down there, no internet, and it really hit a lot of people. I mean, it's big
So
coverage.
we have not, over the years, we've done a little bit of radio for ODC, not much. I do radio for other clients.
Right.
Normally, if it's event driven, I feel like that works better when I'm trying to drive people to a certain location. For ODC, talk radio, we've kind of tiptoed into that in the past, where we've interviewed board members, we've done interviews, we've done, interviewing Tom, what's going on. I would think the talk radio things would probably be better to look at for this board than just spot placement.
Well, we ought to get some radio down in Okinawa. It's completely cheap, and now that we're business partners and selling surplus equipment, I don't know if you know it.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
But anyway, believe it or not, I would advertise on those stations, and they'd come back over to Presidio, and there's not that many people, but it was 100% coverage. They didn't have anything else.
They didn't have much. I advertised for another client in El Paso and around, but we have we do have good numbers out there, and the smaller markets are much less expensive, for sure.
One person in a small market,
Yeah.
has got an idea,
Sure,
so.
sure. But no, that radio is something that I can look at. I haven't in quite some time.
Other people
But
are targeted every day, bombarded.
sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's, I still think it's a great medium. It certainly has its place, just have to find the right things to put out there. So, nope, I'll take a look.
Anything else? Any other questions?
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Christie.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is Black Chamber of Commerce. Chris isn't here. We have it in the packet. Anybody I can give a little highlight on that? Everybody read this area?
No questions.
Any question on that? Sorry. Yeah, I don't see Tyler. UTVB, it's in the packet as well, and then, next we'll move down to James Beecham, Motran.
Up at your seat, you have this little page right here, and that's what I was going to talk to you about real briefly today. We're in the process right now of finalizing the next Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which is the 25-year plan for the Midland and Odessa area. This particular one covers from 2035 to 2050. And if you look at that, I want to draw your particular attention today from Loop 338 because that's something we've talked to you previously about and you'd looked at in the budgeting process. So at this point, under the current UTP or 10-year plan that we are in, as far as actual expenditures on Loop 338, it's been roughly about $106 million. And you've seen most of that in the way of the Yukon interchange and one other out there. So in the existing plan, from now going forward, the existing MTP, not the new one, there's already $105 million that is programmed for Loop 338. One of the things in this MTP cycle we were able to do with the addition of I-27 and I-14 was bring a lot of additional planning money to the table. And so that's given probably in the neighborhood of around $400 million of additional planning authority moving forward in this cycle. One of the areas where that's being invested is on Loop 338. And you'll see there in the proposed MTP, there's an additional $571 million going towards that. So if you take that all together, the additional, what was already planned, what's already being spent, at this point, within this time period that we're looking at, you have roughly about $782 million being spent on completing portions of Loop 338. And just so we're clear about that, that's from about 302 back over to 191. $782 million to get that to a freeway design, access roads, 4-lane divided, and the structures that are necessary. If we wanted to go ahead and finish out the rest of it going down south, that gets you to close to $1 billion. It's $992 million, I think, is the price tag on that. But just for this point, that's kind of where we're at. That's a big investment going forward for Odessa and completing a major segment of that loop. One thing that I would say, because we have additional planning authority doesn't mean we have the necessary construction funds to go with that. Now, normally what happens, if you plan and develop the projects, they'll start allocating additional funding over time to the area to fill that gap. But I also think it's important at some point, talking about additional budget authority that you put towards infrastructure, if we could designate some of that to a couple of these projects, I think that would be real helpful on being on the front end of that period as opposed to the back end. And just FYI, by 2050, at the end of that period, I'll be 77 years old. I don't know if I'll get to drive on those roads. So I say we go sooner rather than later. The other thing that's good in this, you see quite a bit of funding on the I-14 front. All of that funding is in Odessa, and it is going towards 385 South. The plan is to go ahead and start the study, and we'll be starting that probably in the next month or so, to take the 385 corridor south of the interstate and make it, which is already 4-lane divided, but to acquire the additional right-of-way and to add access roads along that entire stretch. So I think from an industrial development standpoint, there'll also be a lot of benefit there. But I just wanted to give you this information, let you see what's happening. I think it's all pretty positive on this front. And then again, to make that point that I think if it's possible, if we could start looking at designating a few of those projects, that would be great too.
James, recently we obviously talked about designating some additional funding from ODC to help advance those projects. Is MDC looking at some additional funding as well? Because if you remember, you know, and I think Motran was very instrumental in orchestrating it, that MDC and ODC basically earmarked the same level of funding, and I mean, I think that was really good for the Permian Basin and certainly good for Odessa and Ector County.
They have, and I will say this though, Bhutan, and I've got to be a little careful here. If you do look here, one of the things is you're going to get a lot more of the future funding once you add this up. Odessa, for the first time in a long time, is going to be ahead, and like significantly so in this. MDC, started taking some of their money, and what they wanted to do was plan their own projects. Like, they wanted to hire an engineering firm and go through this process and plan, and in that way they felt like they could be in the driver's seat on that. And I think that was a terrible mistake on their part. And it's part of the reason that you're going to get more money than them. So you can do that. You could have used some of your money, you could use some of the money you have and say, we want to plan an overpass out here. And that's great. And you're going to have to hire somebody. You're going to have somebody who has all the qualifications on the approved contractor list from TxDOT, all that sort of thing. It's going to be very expensive. And now you're going to have to manage that project. And who's going to manage that? Are you going to have somebody at the city manage that, somebody at the county? I mean, you really need a TxDOT person to manage that. But the other thing is, 4 or 5 years later, you have a set of plans, they're all to spec, something that TxDOT could use, and you give them to them and go, here, we want you to build this now. They've got to start through a funding cycle where they start hitting up at the district level, back to the commission level, and into a next year cycle, and it's going to be a year after that, and it'll take 5 years to get it funded. On the other hand, where you took your money and gave it in construction dollars to TxDOT, that takes that project, it puts it on that list, and they go through that funding process while they're planning and developing the project. That's where I say you've been a lot smarter to just put that money, here's a little bit of money towards this project, and have at it.
I know we've discussed doing that. Have we done it yet? We haven't made the decision yet.
No, you put additional money in the budget, but last time we did that, the next part to that was you passed a resolution and said we would like, X amount of money towards this overpass, X amount of money towards this project, and then gave the authority in that resolution that was then subsequently passed by the city council for the chair of ODC to negotiate at the appropriate time payment and that contract of that advanced funding agreement.
Yeah, during the budget process, if you remember, we talked about somewhere between $10 and $20 million. The last funding that the resolution that we approved was $15 million, and we're pretty close to designating all of that, if not, and we've spent a bunch of it. And so it's time probably for us to look at something between $10 and $20 million with really good.
We gave you a couple options, and I'll just say the easiest one is probably that 8 to 10 million, because that completes out that northern portion of the loop, and it advances those projects forward faster.
So we've set that budget ahead. Okay. So is there some suggestions about this next year to move that way?
Well, what I would say, and I think this is something, if you want us to, we can work with you on drafting up those specific projects. You've already done a resolution like that in the past, that maybe we could do another resolution for you to look at that specifies that. And the good part to that is we've already had the discussions with TxDOT, and they're trying to move forward. But if they have that in some type of written form, even though technically as a resolution, I guess you could wiggle out if you wanted to, it gives it in black and white for them to move that up faster and sooner and kind of proceed in a more official form. So if that's something you'd like us to do, we can go back with that project list and bring you back those specifics for you to look at. Okay. Super. Well, again, we thank you.
Any other questions? James? Everybody? Thank you, James. A lot of progress in that direction. City Financial, Kaylee Bonda.
Good afternoon, everyone. The financials are in your packet today. I think it's around page 75. I don't know if your pages are numbered or not, but that is where we're at. We're right after the Motran. So, is everybody there? Do you want me to wait for you to? Okay. So right now I'm just covering the financials. We'll go over the investments here in a little bit when we get to that committee report. This financial signifies a full fiscal year, so it's as of end of September. The total assets we're looking at $94,596,000 and some change. There's about $75 million in the local government pools, 4.4 at this point in time of this financial in CDs, and then 13 million in the money market at Frost. The liquid funds, the money market, and the investment pool funds is what we'll be looking at here in a little bit when we look at the investment options. The fund balance reserved, short-term and long-term, have been updated and kind of strategically placed based on just whatever information I had, whether that was an established timeline in an economic development agreement, or based on when the last payment was, based on where the current compliance was in the process for these agreements. So we have a total committed of $23,220,707. I'm sorry, that's the long term. Total reserved is about $29 million. That $7 million is what's left on the initial $15 million resolution for the tech stop projects. So if you guys are wanting to reallocate some more funds, we would put that on the financial, of course, starting in whenever the resolution goes into place. We also, for the month of October, you'll see a little bit of a difference here as well, because you all wanted to see the infrastructure, like the downtown infrastructure commitments that we had in place on the financials. So I decided to start that at the beginning of the new year, just so that we could have a full year of consistent looking financial statements. Any questions on the first page? Okay. Second page is a statement of revenues and expenditures. For the whole year, you collected $14,387,345 in sales tax. Comparison to last year. Let me see, I have it here. Last year, total collected was, oh gosh. Yeah, that's right. 14,518,000. So just a shy decrease from last year, but pretty much consistent overall, so that's good. For the month, we had total revenues of $1.58 million. Not a whole lot in the way of expenditures, just some marketing invoices that came in for current media that we paid, totaling about $88,000. And then, of course, we had the first payment for Walkman come through, which is that $489,000. We have had the second payment for Walkman come through just this week, so we got that processed. So the total for the month, the excess was $994,108, and actual year-to-date excess $14,935,597. Any questions?
Appreciate it.
Okay. On the next page is just a detailed breakdown of those short-term and long-term commitments. We do have, I think, a couple. I think there's one on the agenda today for Cage to possibly get approved for payout. I believe there's one Select Energy that you guys approved last time that we're just waiting on some documentation for to pay out. So we'll have a handful of payouts to do over the next 12 months. So that's why I really wanted to get into the details of these development agreements and figure out timelines so I could give you guys an accurate portrayal of what that was going to look like. A lot of these should have probably already had a payment, but you know, just in the logistics of figuring the contracts out and communicating with these companies and getting correct information, I think we're reaching a point where we're starting to see a lot of these ready to go, which is a good thing, that we're kind of in the groove of getting these payouts to the company so that they're not waiting on us. And, you know, we don't want them waiting on us. It's just not a good look. So the next page is the investment summary. We started the month with our government pools, 75,226,000, and we ended the month with 76,736,000. Money market had some interest, 57,000. So ending balance for all those liquid funds is 94,220,000. Pretty straightforward. Okay. And then lastly is the investment comparison, just showing the breakdown of what we already looked at. We have no muni securities, of course, you know, all of those already matured. As of now, the West Texas National Bank has matured. And that First Bank and Trust has the wrong date on it, so that one they renewed for us. Any questions on that part?
What's the correct date on that?
It should be, I think they backdated it for us, so I don't remember if it was a 12-month or an 18-month CD. Yeah, but I will get that updated. Anything else? Other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Kaylee. Thank you, Kaylee.
Mm-hmm.
All right, item 6, committee officer reports, partnership. We have not met, but we're planning to meet next month. Around the 20th, 18th, 19th. Looking forward to that. And advertising, Christy gave us an update on the advertising. DOI grants and design review board, anything there, Larry?
There's no BI.
Nothing there. And compliance, anything,
No meetings.
didn't meet during this time period.
okay. And investment review, have y'all had a meeting yet, or no? Okay, anything?
I think Kaylee's ready to present the results of our meeting.
Excellent. Thank you, Kaylee.
Sorry, I wouldn't have sat down. I thought there was other people there. Okay, so the investment committee did meet. We met a couple different times. And this is not in your packet, so I'm going to hand this out to you. This is just a very short presentation on what came out of our committee meeting. One of the things that we wanted to do was establish an approach, right? We've got a lot of commitments out there. We've got various funding mechanisms out there. So we wanted to really pin down our commitments in an accurate way. And do you have that you're supposed to present it? I do want to thank Jean and David for your input and their time in really helping craft this strategy. It was a group effort. So there on that first page, there's basically 3 categories that we have narrowed in on. There are short-term funds, so funds that are committed to existing economic development agreements, funds that over the next 12 to 24 months will go towards operating costs, and also funds that will go towards your existing contractors. I decided to include 24 months on the short term because even though short term is traditionally defined as within 12 months, this is just a little bit more of a conservative approach. And also some of the timings of the economic development agreement payments are hard to pin down just because there's a lot of moving pieces. Second category is long-term, so funds that are committed to existing economic development agreements that are over that 24-month period. In this, I also included forecasted operating costs in all these categories. So on the operating costs, I did just an increase from year to year of 5%, just to kind of keep up with inflation and normal rising costs. Of course, I can't account for anything unanticipated, right? But overall, we tried to craft a conservative approach to this so that we weren't putting every cent of everything we had into something that we couldn't touch. And then the third category is the uncommitted and the unreserved funds. So that is money that is not currently tied to any operating costs, any development agreement, anything like that. The starting figure that we used for this is the liquid funds that are showing on your September balance sheet. So there's about 88 million between the local government pool, so Tex Pool, Techstar, and the money market at Frost. So that's what we're working with whenever we were looking at how much we had available to commit. On the second page, I just broke down some of the different options that we have for investments or just liquid holdings. The first is a very obvious Tex Pool, the money market. On these, we thought it would be appropriate for two types of funds. Funds that we anticipated exiting the door within 12 months, whether that's operating or a development agreement payment. And then also, any shortages that we anticipated. So what I did was I mapped out a cash flow. I put all of the expected development agreement payments. I put all of the anticipated operating costs, and that represents our total cash outflow. In comparison to that, on the other side, our cash inflows. I basically by month broke down what we budgeted for sales tax on an even basis. I broke down what we budgeted for interest income on an even basis. And so when we look at what we're expected to pay out over the next 12 months and what we're expected to get in, there's a shortfall. And that's the case for the next 2 years. I think a large part of that is simply because we have a lot of development agreements that are now getting to a point that are ready to pay out that maybe should have been in a different fiscal year, right? So it's not a bad thing. We have the funds to cover any shortfalls, but we wanted to make sure that we kept anything that we were going to be short in a very liquid place. So Tex Pool or a money market. The next was a CD, so also not as liquid, but you can get out of a CD if you absolutely need to. That I thought would be appropriate for anything that's within that 12 to 24 months. Next is the agencies or securities. So here's where we start looking at laddering out the investments based on the structured timeline for these agreements. And of course, as we've already discussed, we don't make a payment on an annual basis at the same time. So whenever I literally had a calendar out, I mapped all the payments out. I tried to do it in a very conservative fashion. And so this agencies or securities funding or investment vehicle is what we deemed appropriate for anything that we could estimate the timed outflows on an annual basis. And then the last category was the uncommitted. I did take out from this number the TxDOT reserves, the $7 million, just because I don't really know when that's going out the door, but I know it's reserved. So I took that out, and that's why the total funds of $80 million is a little bit less than if you were to add up on your balance sheet what you have in the pool in the money market. So the last page is more of the recommendations. I'll preface this with, this is what you can invest in what and when if you feel comfortable investing that much. If you don't have to invest, for example, $13 million in 12-month CDs. If you want to, based on your anticipated cash outflows and inflows, you can, but you don't have to. So I'll just start with the first one, the Tex Pool 2025, the $5 million there at the top. That represents, based on the cash flow schedule that I told you about, the shortage that we'll have. So we'll be $5 million in the negative, quote unquote. I don't think we actually will be that much because we significantly under budgeted for interest income. I think we budgeted, I can't remember, maybe 200,000 or something like that. But last year you guys received $4 million in interest income. So there's going to be a lot of that to make up some of the negative. So I don't think we'll be that much in the negative. But I did think that it was wise to keep that $5 million shortage, quote unquote, the shortfall in a text pool. The second line item there, also in text pools, $17,128,000. That represents your cash outflows. So all of your contractor payments, your economic development agreement payments, and your operating costs that are anticipated to go out the door within the next 12 months. The next thing there is the fiscal year 2026 shortfall. So we're not anticipated to be in as much of a net loss, quote unquote, that year. So that's why I'm thinking a CD is more appropriate because it's a little bit further out. I chose a 6-month CD rather than a 12-month just because it is that shortfall piece. So we want to have access to it earlier rather than later if we need it. And then the second CD, 12 months, oh, there's a spelling error there. I just realized that. Of $13 million, that's what's anticipated to go out the door in those cash outflow payments, costs, contractors, things like that. The next category there is that laddered investment strategy in orange. My approach here was I mapped out all of the payments that we had, for these years, 2027, 28, 29, 2030. The agreements we have right now take us through that far. They'll dwindle off, right, as we pay some out that are maybe going to come due in 2028 rather than 2030. And of course, you guys will add more agreements as we're going through these years. We'll only be in that shortfall position projected for fiscal year 25 and 26. Once we hit fiscal year 27, you're looking at a net positive of about $7 million, and same in the next year. So the shortfall is just temporary, and there are additional funds coming in that will be available to give you guys assurance that you can keep giving out these grants to businesses. I structured it in a way that anything that was going to outflow in year 3, so fund year 2027, that they would come due to maturity in year 2, just so that we always have that money before we need it, and so on and so forth. Anything in year 3, anything in year 4, come due in year 3, and so on and so forth. The remaining uncommitted, there in the green, the last category, those are funds that you don't have any commitments for right now. So of the $80 million you have in the tax pool and money markets, there's no claim to that. We talked about in the committee maybe putting those in long-term investments because, there's nothing that we would need to access it for right now. However, we also talked about being diligent that we keep kind of a nest egg available. Welcome-In and ICA are great examples. Those are reimbursement basis grants, and they're completed. So they're pretty short term because the construction doesn't last 5 years, right, you hope. And so this, I think, would be more ideal to just keep in text pool, to leave it there just in case you had another project come up that you wanted to allocate funds towards, and you could do that readily. So again, the total of everything that you have available to put somewhere, whether that's text pool or an investment, is about $80 million. David, Jean, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would add is I think it gives us this establishes a philosophy, but depending on what the sentiment is, you know, what, you know, what Kaylee may tell us from a forecasting perspective, what we all know, from a forecasting perspective, you know, what the environment's gonna be. You know, I think you certainly move these funds around, but it gives us, like I say, a philosophy that we can look at, and then I think I think going through this, Kaylee's been able to identify all of the pieces that are important to us, and give some purpose to, you know, make the board making some kind of purposeful decisions with regard to, you know, do we want to ladder, for instance, I think one of the things that's you know, with regard to the long-term funds in the orange is, well, maybe we're not comfortable, maybe the board as a whole is not comfortable with having any of those funds tied up for 60 months. Well, I mean, that's a philosophy that we can, or a decision that we can all make together. And so maybe we do some type of a three-stage laddering. Maybe it's a two-stage laddering. I think this is a good starting point for us. And then we talked about looking at this, Kaylee coming back to us on a quarterly basis and giving us some kind of an update as to where we are from an investment perspective. What are the opportunities out there? And again, right now, you know, all of these they're still have reasonable returns. I mean, pretty decent returns.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some of them not as good as, you know, 60, 90 days ago, but I think we can realize some pretty good interest income based on these investments. And then I think it's important, the part that she talked about with regard to the uncommitted, you know, we as a board on a regular basis, I think, need to adopt or to agree to how much dry powder do we need for a really large project that Tom may bring to us. You know, we don't even know what that is today. And you know, we probably need to do that. Now, does it need to be $18 million? Does it need to be $10 million? Does it need to be 30? I mean, I think we just all need to kind of get comfortable with that concept. And the other way to look at it is that do we need to get on a mission to spend these funds more aggressively? That's a board decision to make. So this is a starting point. I don't think this is the end game at all. And certainly if we look at this on a quarterly basis, then I think we can refine, we can tweak this, and it's going to change based on what the conditions are. What's the environment look like? The economic environment. What's the environment look like with regard to businesses that are interested in expanding, businesses that are interested in relocating here? You know, the appetite for infrastructure projects that make sense with regard to our major thoroughfares, you know, here in the area. So I think this is a starting point, and I don't think anybody should interpret this that says we agree to do this and it's done and we don't touch it again, because it's not going to be. It's going to be fluid. Mm-hmm. And again, I think updating it quarterly would make some sense for us to all have a conversation about.
Yeah, just thank you, David. Kaylee, large kudos on the color coding here. I like it. The philosophy point that David touched on is that we wanted to create a tool for the board to kind of take stock of what's in front of us in a easy to understand format. The quarterly timing, I think, is just right for that, and it allows us to be nimble, I think. And so it's not the end game, as David suggested there. It's more of like an iterative tool so that we can continually size up or take stock of where we are. And so thank you for taking the time to put this together so quickly. And if there's deeper questions about what you'd like to see or the quarterly format, we could talk about it as a board.
And I guess, and I'm not sure, exactly what form we need to do this, but, if we had a consensus of the board that this is a good starting point, then Kaylee can bring to us investment options that fit into this model. And then we can, and then when she brings those to us, she says, all right, well, this fits in this manner. Here's what the return is. Here's what the commitment is. Here's how liquid it is, or, whatever. So I'm just wondering, I not necessarily know that we need yeah. So, I guess if there are no objections, then maybe what we do is Kaylee is going to come to us with some investment options that fit this strategy in the future, and she'll show us how that fits, and what the return is, and then again we can, as we go through that, I think what she's going to do from time to time, she's going to bring us things and we say, well, no, we don't really want to do that, that, and maybe because the environment's changed. Our philosophy with regard to, what kind, what's the extent of the grants, dollars that we want to keep as dry powder may change. There's all kinds of things that could change that, but maybe that's a good way for us to proceed. At least we've got something that says, here's what our strategy is, and then we can always change it.
So I'm happy to do that, to go back and get some different rates on things. The only thing to consider is that those rates fluctuate daily.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I were to go and call every bank in town and say, what's your 12-month CD today, by the time we have our next board meeting, it could be 25 basis points lower type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I still can. I can call and get CD rates. I can pull all the non-callable agencies and see what they're offering as far as return goes. But they'll be different than the day that we come.
I think that's good for the board to understand. I think it's a very useful tool. I would urge the board to avoid tying too much up for 60 months. I think it's useful to have an approach that utilizes all of these different tools, but I would, until we know how things are going, maybe even at first, maybe you minimize what's tied up for a very long period of time, just because we are hopeful to have that large project come through that's exciting and something that we could throw some.
Well, and it also could be that what she finds out is that there's no advantage to tying it up for a long period of time from a return perspective. So we'll see that as well.
Yeah, the investment policy allows you to go up to 5 years, but I think historically we don't go that long. So that's why I preface this with, this is what you could do based on your expected net cash flows, but you certainly don't have to. If, like Melanie said, it's a little bit risky to tie up for 5 years, $6 million, I agree with that. So I'm not recommending this by any means, but it is a good starting
It's good to
point.
look at. It's
Yes.
useful to look at.
Mm-hmm.
An example, we budgeted the 20 million for the tech stop this fiscal year, but we may do something similar in the next fiscal year if the need
Yeah,
arises.
it's hard to know what opportunities might come up, and you don't want to be too married to a process that you're not able to do something that would be very beneficial to the community.
Do we need to
I
get
like
some
this,
sort of
this is very
consensus
useful.
with the board? Does everybody
I think I also would like to just hear from you on what you feel comfortable on that dry powder number.
So, I know we years ago talked about it in a ratio concept similar to what banks do as far as ratios. David, talk to us about what kind of ratio makes sense, or what are some options?
Well, maybe a better way to look at it is, I don't think we would have ever thought that we would have had a $20 million opportunity on a $7.5 billion project. But I think the reality is that that is that option. And so maybe it's, how many of those do we think we're gonna have a chance at? Well, I don't think there's gonna be very many of them. And, maybe, I feel comfortable between, 10 and $20 million, a project that we would do a grant in the amount of $10 to $20 million on a $5 to $10 billion project, somewhere down the road, and maybe I think that's a better way to look at it. What do we have a thirst for? Well, we want to create a lot of really good jobs and capital investment to expand the tax base. So from my perspective, I think it's a little different, I guess, Melanie, that I think it's, we don't want to miss an opportunity because we don't have the funds.
Well, we need to remember, though, that a $20 million grant would be potentially paid out over 5 to 10 years.
10 years.
So we don't
Yeah.
have to have
Yeah, that's true.
all of it available year round. We don't have to have all of it
Yeah.
liquid immediately. But we need to have a sense that it will be available over that period of time. We need to have the assurances that we'd be able to reach it if needed before the end of the term.
Right. Well, I like to have the money in my hip pocket. I mean, really, to do what's best for the taxpayers, I think we would need to be. I think we'd need to be a little bit conservative in that regard. But again, this board may conclude, well, we don't want to do any projects that big. Or we don't think we're going to have projects like that. But I think it's a good start to where we're at. I'm comfortable with that uncommitted number of, close to $20 million. And it's a good start. And it's, again, we can always change it. We're not going to get hip deep in long-term investment commitments that we can't change. That's not going to happen. That by virtue of the fact that we've got, I guess, 2/3 of this, for all practical purposes, or maybe half of it, something like that, in 24 months or less obligations, and a lot of it that we can get within 24 hours or 48 hours or whatever it is. So, I think from my perspective, I'd like to think about being prepared to do a $10 to $20 million grant. Again, granted, it's probably going to be paid out over 10 years, but have the ability to look at our financial situation, our investment situation, and have that earmarked for that next big project that we get a chance at.
So that number probably around 20 million, I guess, is what we're leaning toward.
I'd appreciate anybody else's thoughts,
The dry, the way you put it, dry.
It's dry
dry
powder.
powder.
Well, and that's pretty much where you guys would land if you did all of these investments. So you're in a good spot. So if you feel comfortable at 20, then, maybe we don't go anything near the 5 months, and we don't invest all $6 million in each of those categories.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a couple
And I think
million.
it's important to understand that we have to make decisions on each one of these investments. It's not like, Kaylee's gonna take this and all of a sudden she's gonna bring back an investment portfolio that's already committed. That isn't gonna happen. We're gonna be able to make those decisions as we go.
When you bring it back, would you make sure to include information regarding any early call penalties or anything like that so that
Yeah.
they're able to, because I assume it won't be next month, but so that the decision can be made with all of the information?
Yeah. I was actually gonna suggest that we do non-callable options, just so that we know that that money is locked in and not able to be called.
Not able to be called.
Yeah.
And even on the CD, there's some early call penalties, aren't there?
There's some
Yeah.
penalties.
If you have to call early.
Yeah.
Even for those.
Mm-hmm.
We
But
don't know
yes.
exactly what those are, do we?
Yeah, it varies from bank to bank, and I think how long you have left on the CD and how much you have in the CD and all that.
Right.
If they can just, if we can have all of the information to look at, I think this is a good approach. Thank y'all for all the work that y'all have done on this.
Yes.
I think it's a useful tool.
Any other questions on that?
No, I think it's-
Do we have pretty good consensus on everybody? That's good. We don't need any kind of motion.
Okay. I'll
you,
have
Kayla.
that information next month.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you, Katie.
Okay, any member of the public may address the ODC board regarding any of its agenda items before or during the consideration of the item.
Dr. Kirk, this is what you have on number 7 in front of you.
Okay.
Is the latest and greatest.
Okay.
That we got to now. So it's not in the packet, but it's now.
Right here.
in.
Okay.
What you're going to be voting on next.
Okay, so number 7, consider resolution approving the engagement letter for audit services by Weaver to conduct an audit of the Economic Development Department of the Chamber, Meredith McKee. And Renee, or
Thank you. So this is the portion of the audit that ODC has received in the past. As you know, Weaver does an audit for our chamber 3 departments, which it covers operations, economic development, and Discover Odessa, which is tourism. In the past, you all have got a separate report that is specific to the economic development dollars. And I'll let Meredith talk about that.
Yeah, so you all have historically signed the engagement letter for the ED audit because you all get a standalone report for that. It does roll up into the operations report that I give Renee, but you get a report that is your piece of chamber only, the ED piece. So that's why the engagement letter comes to y'all for approval. That's why it's historically been signed by this council.
So what's different in this than what we have in the packet? What's
I will
changed?
tell you, there were 2 things. So Discover Odessa also has an engagement letter. The first letter that we gave you that may have been sent in the packet was a typo. It pertained to the sports recruitment effort, so we deleted that out. So the one that you have, also, it had the chamber signing it, so they asked that we change that line item to Odessa Development Corporation. Dan did ask me later this afternoon that the chamber also have a signature, but actually it is their report, so we feel like just having ODC is accurate.
What we- what-
The management responsibilities, if you look on page 207, what you have, E is completely different than what it is here. So basically, it's moved, a couple things have moved up, a couple things have moved down, kind of out of order and everything. But other than that, everything's pretty much the same, but it's touched it. That makes any sense.
What was the estimated fee?
It's the same.
7.
no more than
Same.
8,400.
Last year?
Last year was 7,800.
Okay.
And that is a payment that Weaver sends to the city for Odessa Development Corporation. And chamber pays the full audit cost from our part.
When we've historically paid the audit costs for other contractors that we required to have audited financials. I know that is the case.
Okay.
any other questions?
Need a motion to approve.
Entertain a
I
motion. Oh, go ahead.
actually have a quick question. So we had talked at one point in time, how long has Weaver been doing this audit?
The chamber has had the Weaver do the audit. I couldn't even tell you, it's been well over 24 years. And again, our board of directors is who approves our auditing company. So that's
So
who.
that's just questions for me. That's 24 years of relationship with the same auditing firm. I know that's been a discussion that's been had amongst this board and various other boards throughout the city for quite a while. Just on that. So that's my question is on Weaver and not looking at other things. So anyway.
Again, this is an audit that our chamber board does, and they approve that. The other one that we would consider would be Whitley Penn. And Judd Campbell, who is a partner at Whitley Penn, just came off of our board as our
That would
board
be a
chair.
conflict of
That was a
interest, I know.
conflict.
Yes,
So
that makes sense.
And we
Okay.
only utilize chamber members, so we have used Weaver possibly longer than that, so.
Okay. That's all I need to know.
Since before it was Weaver?
Yes, yes. Long before was Elvis Ferris prior.
Entertain a motion to approve the audit by Weaver?
The engagement letter?
Engagement, is that what this is? Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah. So moved.
All right, motion made by Melanie Holman. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Gene Chavez. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, number 8, discuss and consider Nacero's response to June 17th, 2024 repayment demand. We have had a conversation
Lots of
with
fun.
Jeff Moore with Nacero, and we got a response back from them. They feel like they're in compliance, not owing us any money. Anything would, any,
I think it was kind of expected that would end up being the response when we
Sure.
first.
read anything about what was said, or?
You can, you may want to read it in the record, or I can do it, whatever you want.
I can read it in here. Jeff Moore sent a letter to Mr. Selkirk with this, let's see, Nacero, I guess we'd say. Please be advised, I serve as an attorney for the ODC. Further, I'm writing regarding the above-mentioned agreement. Please consider this letter as formal written 30-day notice of termination pursuant to Section 2.6 of the above reference agreement. Per Section 2.6 of the written agreement, either party may terminate the agreement upon 30 days of written notice, and following expiration of the 30-day notice period, this agreement shall have no further force or effect. Further, the ODC previously paid Nacero $1,991,600 consistent with the terms of the agreement. ODC hereby also demands repayment of the financial assistance provided to Nacero, which in that amount. And that was the demand to basically claw back the money we have paid them. Do I need to write in?
Do you want to
We
read
need-
the letter from Gray Reed?
I can. That's what you'll go ahead and read that as well? Okay.
I mean, it basically says they're not going to pay us back.
Yeah, okay, so response to the demand letter from attorney firm Gray Reed, which would be Philip B. Jordan. My firm represents Nacero, Texas 1 LLC. On September 24th, 2024, my client received your letter originally dated June 17th, 2024, and asked that I formally respond to the repayment demand set forth in your letter. Although my client agrees the economic development agreement between it and ODC is now terminated, Nacero rejects the demand for repayment of the first period financial assistance awarded to Nacero in the amount of $1,991,600. That payment was made by your client consistent with the economic development agreement and was for actual and verified defined progress milestones achieved during the first period year of the economic development agreement. Therefore, no repayment is owed. My client has had conversations with certain Odessa Development Corporation board members, and based on my understanding of those discussions, the ODC agrees with Nacero's position that no repayment is owed. I have no idea who that is. Nacero appreciates the extremely beneficial financial assistance previously awarded by the ODC and very much hopes to renew his partnership with the ODC in economic development. Economic and technical issues support the business case to do so. However, Nacero must now request that the ODC formally and in writing withdraw its written demand for repayment of $1,991,600 and expressly acknowledge that Nacero does not owe such funds to the ODC. There is where we are. We're coming up to this at some point, and we've asked for the return. Hal stood in front of us and said they would return it.
That was entered into the official meeting, or that was in the official meeting minutes, was it not?
I believe so. If he was here.
Standing right here. That would,
yeah.
said if we requested it, he would return it, but
I mean, our option at this point would be to sue to have the funds returned, and I don't know that we have legal grounds for that suit. That's my opinion.
that's
Is
a
there
good opinion.
performance clause in there? I mean, post-payment performance clause.
That's only if you pay and then they don't perform, but we paid in arrears for a period where we had an audit that stated that they did perform to the tune of this much and that we owed the money.
So, I mean, do we have any action at all?
My opinion is no. We
I don't
asked
think
for
so.
it back because
We thought
that
that
was,
might be nice.
it'd be nice if they'd give it back, but
They said that they would.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, where did the money go? For what? What was it given to them for?
so and we would need to give you the audit report from Weaver,
Okay.
which I know that we all have it. It was in our packet, but it's from,
Well, was it basically for technological work or
it's for
plotting or
design
land planning
and
or development? Or who's actually
development
doing
and-
anything?
Engineering and design.
Pardon?
Engineering and design.
Okay.
They were to spend the round number about $100 million, which they did. And the audit determined that they did spend those funds. It was just short of what they were required to spend. So we prorated this payment, progress payment was to be $2 million.
Yes, sir.
And so we modified it to conform to the percentage of what they'd spent of the $100 million.
Okay, now, is this for the site at Penwell?
Mhm.
And they're not proceeding with that in any way?
not at
Well,
this time.
Not at this time.
Because
According to
somebody's
what
doing
he
something
said.
out there and,
That's a carbon capture.
That's the carbon capture. So it's
okay, I didn't know if
1.5.
it was the same group of people or
1.5
not,
miles.
so, okay.
They came to us and told us they're moving to the coast to do their work on the coast, and
And that they may come back.
one day,
Yeah.
we come back.
And
Yeah.
so we terminated the contract because it doesn't make sense for us to have the funds tied up and reserved to that project if it's not going to move ahead for maybe 10 more years.
Yes, I agree with you. I mean,
So we terminated the contract and we asked that they return the funds. They don't necessarily have a legal obligation to return the funds, and that's their attorney's position here. But we asked, and
well, in the vagueness, who was, you said a ODC member said, did they name a name?
No.
Nope.
No,
Yeah, see, that's the
it
first
says,
red flag.
So-
Well, so-and-so said so,
with certain ODC board members,
yeah.
but
I don't
that's-
know that-
that's.
and they asked that we
understand.
send them written acknowledgement that we're withdrawing our demand. I don't know that we
No.
have any obligation to do that either.
Yeah,
I don't think we
wouldn't
do.
I
that.
mean, I
we
think
do.
if we decide in this meeting not to sue,
We have no obligation to put
we
it in
can send them
writing.
those minutes.
Now, Melanie, correct me if I'm wrong though, but the problem with going after this that I see is that the audit said that they did $1.9 million worth. That's the problem that we have
The problem
going.
is that
Yeah.
we have assurances that they
Yeah.
met the obligations of the
To
contract.
get, to
they
get the
earned
first $2
payment.
million, yep, that's our problem
We
with going
asked
after
them to
them.
pay it back because it'd be nice.
So that's gonna work against us if we ask them to
if we go after them legally. I mean,
And-
our audit has basically put us in a position to where we're not getting that money back.
I mean,
I don't
if
see it
we-
legally.
If we had refused to make the payment, we would have been in breach of contract.
Yeah.
By the way, the
And then
contract
there
was
would have
written.
been-
Yeah. The one thing we asked questions about back at the time, which is all in the past, we asked if this engineering was being done here, or if it was being done in Houston, or wherever it was being done. They continue to say that this work is in the process here in the county, but it was most likely a lot of that was.
No, their design work and whatnot, we knew was being
Was
done in
somewhere else.
Houston. Now, the portion of it
Right.
they were doing out here, there were probably some civil engineering that they were doing, survey work and things like that. But it was a very small piece of the
Right.
puzzle.
I mean, they'd have to
I
have
think we're
the,
beyond that, we approved it.
Oh, this is in the past. I'm just making a comment.
Yeah.
Payment, and I wouldn't think we'd want to open the door to litigation by going after them, that is
No.
complex.
Well, and the conversations we've also had was, if we're unhappy the way the contract was written,
Right.
then we need to do it differently next time.
That's part of the reason that we have Jeff Moore involved now writing the contracts
And I
and
think
doing
that
that.
we have,
I think we've
taken
corrected that
steps to-
situation.
So, any more discussion about this? Do we need to,
I would suggest, it's my opinion, I would suggest that we take, can we take action this meeting to say that we are not gonna take further action on this demand?
Take no action, period.
And I say somebody can forward them the minutes, and I don't think
I
we
don't
have
even
to
know
do
that we
anything
necessarily
beyond
have to
that.
forward them the minutes. I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, I say you say, make a motion, take no action, period.
Well, okay. I do think it's responding in some way makes some sense. I don't think we're trying to burn this bridge by this action, because there still is a possibility, once they get that methanol plant done on the West Coast, they'll come out here and do that here, or they'll restart the other project. I think we want to leave the door open for them to do that, and so I do think it makes some sense to communicate back to them in whatever fashion we think is the most prudent way to do it. I just like to see I don't want to see us close the door on it. It's a big project, and if it ever, if there was a chance for them to do it here, I'd like for us to do it. It's a lot of jobs and a lot of capital investment.
So it's a methanol recovery plant or methanol manufacturing plant?
is gasoline?
they're going to take,
Well-
they're basically going to take natural gas, turn it into methanol, and then turn around and take that methanol and further refine that or transport it into, it started off as gasoline,
And then jet fuel.
then jet fuel, and then sustainable aviation fuel after that.
But
I
there's a
believe so.
market for the methanol on the coast,
Okay.
and that's the reason that they were.
Have a market for it here, too.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
our market
but a
frustration
larger
is.
market, according to them.
So, we have a motion to,
Well, I make a motion that we take no further action on the demand in the letter from ODC dated June 17, 2024.
okay, motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Larry Robinson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass unanimous.
Okay, are we going to respond to them with regard to the action we took?
We can send them a minute.
I mean, I think we can.
I think the minutes
I don't think,
would be
yeah.
clear that
Yeah, I don't
contain
think
that
there's any
motion.
harm in doing that. It doesn't, and
We can-
again,
We can ask Dan to
Yeah, we can do that.
forward them a copy of the minutes
We can do that.
and a little cover letter.
And I'll do that.
I'm curious about the, asking us to not, to remove that demand, but something up there, a credit rating or something, so. If it's out there, you never know. Okay. All right. Number 9, consider approval of annual compliance monitoring report and incentive payment for Cage Equipment LLC. Tom Mansky?
Good afternoon again. I'll try to go quickly because I'm now way past my nap time. So you should have in front of you resolution with regards to the compliance report, and I believe I was looking for it. I believe the compliance report is in your packet. It's been before y'all before. This did not go to the compliance committee simply because when it came in, the report from it said that they were in compliance. Typically, when a report is in compliance, we don't put that in front of the compliance committee. We bring it back if they find something that falls short of what the expectations were, like in the item y'all were just discussing. And that's where they made the recommendation that you make a payment that was equivalent to the percentage that previous project had done. This one they're in, the reason this is stretched out, because the draft actually came in June, is there was some, between the 941 numbers that the actual project filled out, Cage Equipment, when that was sent to Texas Workforce, and Texas Workforce put those numbers into their system, and we can't explain it. We've looked, I think at the last meeting, which I was not at, the last regular meeting, y'all had asked Tracy to go back and verify Cage's numbers, which she did. Looked at them again. The numbers are in compliance. They just don't match Texas Workforce's numbers, which Texas Workforce is supposed to take those and put them into their system. And we're not finding out what happened. I can speculate, but I'm not going to do that here publicly. Do what?
Is the error not on our grantee? It's an error by the other party?
See, now you're asking me to speculate. The speculation would be that the project did not make the error. We've reviewed those documents a couple of times, and then they went over to Texas Workforce, and for some reason their number's not the same as theirs, and they're supposed to take those and put them in their system. But even that, they came in well enough that they met the FTE requirements on the hours and how they factor those in. They've got item one, they have their insurance to protect all their risks, and then you don't really see capital investment audited in this report like a lot of projects. That's already been completed in a previous year in a previous report, and so now they're down to finishing out the 5-year requirements on their FTEs. And so when you read it, they've done that. They've met the minimum requirements on the FTE, not only on the hours, but on the payroll itself. And so we would ask you to consider supporting them on this particular audit. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any other questions on this?
So they complied with a lot of the elements of the agreement.
Well, they complied with all they were required to for this particular year.
Confirmation of the piece
I'm sorry?
about the confirmation with the TWC numbers.
Yeah, even though they weren't the exact same, both sets were above the requirement.
Okay.
They just didn't match. And so when the compliance report came back, they said these don't match 100%, but both figures do meet the minimum requirement.
Well, I have a question, just because I'm a suspicious person. So did any of the 941, could they have just put it to the management or executive owners and say, so they could say we spent this kind of money on employees?
Well, they go through and they look at the positions and everything. They do an employee inventory.
Okay, well, I'm just
And
asking.
this is
Yeah.
Weaver, not Weaver,
This
Whitley
is
Penn.
Whitley Penn.
did this
Whitley
one.
Penn
Yeah.
goes through and verifies all the documents and then
And they usually, obviously, they let the employer put their numbers down, and then they turn around and go to Workforce and they compare them to make sure, one, they want them to match. These don't match perfectly, but we've had some where Workforce, their numbers come in under the requirement, and now you have an issue because they haven't met the minimum requirement. In this case, both numbers met the minimum. And then they also have their way of getting all the, if the capital investment was still part of their compliance, but they've already passed that, because we're in there, I forgot which year this is, but, those are all reimbursement receipts and things, and Weaver, I did the same thing, I apologize. Whitley Penn has their system, and one thing they're doing now, which I think is pretty cool, although everybody we've worked with they did not keep up with the speed we'd like them to on these things. Each project gets their own individual secure portal, and so they deal with the auditing firm individually, and then the auditing firm instructs them on what specifically to download into their secure personal site. and that allows them to individually look at those. And one thing that helps now, because we've had some issues there, a couple of years ago, we had some audits that were a year behind and payment was a year behind. And sometimes you're going to see one here in a minute that I'm getting emails daily on. But we asked at that time when ODC board was looking into getting a new firm to do the audits, we said, we were left out of the process, your economic development team. And what I mean is we didn't know the audit schedule. We didn't know when they started a compliance audit with the project. When we would find something out is if there was a hiccup, and because we were the one that worked the closest with that company, who did they reach out to first? They'd call us. And they'd say, well, we got a problem. And we're like, describe it, because we don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And so now we're copied on the back and forth of all the emails between the auditing firm and the company, the project. And so that makes it a lot better, because then we can keep an eye on things.
Okay, any other questions?
One question. The date
Yes.
on the resolution, is this, says the 12th, today's 14th. That's before the signature page, but
Let me pull it. I had that up. Oh, here it is.
Yeah, it's approved the 12th day of November of 2024. We need that to be
Yeah.
fixed.
I'd say you could probably, pending that amendment. And since Tina's not here, we could throw her under the bus, right? I mean, I certainly wouldn't say a word if she was sitting right here, but, yeah. It's always good to pick on people that are not in the room.
I move that we accept the audit report and that we make payment in the amount of $63,600, and that the resolution be updated to state that it is approved as of the 14th day of November 2024.
Okay, motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Tim Harry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimous. Okay. Tom, don't go anywhere. We got another one here. Number 10, consider resolution approving an amendment, an addendum to the performance agreement with Liberty Oilfield Services, LLC.
I'm trying to find my resolution on that. And what this is about, this is tweaking the EDA. There were some conflicting dates in this economic development agreement, and I think it's due to everything involved. It was back at the time when we were onboarding Jeff Moore. There was a lot of back and forth, city legal working on some things, Jeff Moore's office working on some things. Our office was involved, and we were dealing with the consulting firm for Liberty. And I will tell you that, I think everybody contributed to the dates and the fact that once all of a sudden you started looking at things from a compliance standpoint, because Whitley Penn's the one that brought it to our attention, the dates didn't match up with the compliance and the payouts. And so what we did is we went back and looked at it, literally had a Zoom call with Whitley Penn to go through the date issues and then what are options we could come up with to correct those. And I think these were the dates we decided. I know Liberty's chewing the bit to get their compliance done and get a check. They're ahead as far as hiring and spending, so that's not a concern. Many of you who aren't aware of that project, if you drive down Business 20 before you get to Faudrey and look at the giant building under construction on the right, that is their building. And at completion, it'll be a 1/4 mile long, and it'll employ approximately 1,500 people. So, but matter of fact,
Move for approval.
never mind. I won't even say anymore.
I have a motion made by David Boutin, second by Tim Harry. All in favor?
Aye.
One thing I would point out is it looks to me like on this resolution, while it it does say the resolution was approved and adopted on the 14th day of November. When you come down here under the names for the votes, it says approved the 21st day of October. So I would say subject to updating the date on the resolution for that.
Good with that.
Yes. So, okay, motion carried and, all right, unanimous.
Thank you.
Do we need to do anything?
Do we need to do a revote?
Okay. Okay, number 11, discuss and consider changing the compliance reporting timeline for the economic development agreement with Border State Industries.
That's still me.
It says Tracy.
I think, yeah. You know what? She hadn't been up here, so I'm going to go sit down and invite Tracy Jones to come on up.
We don't have anything in our packet for this, right?
I don't think so.
I didn't see anything.
I didn't find anything.
Yeah, it is. It's in the.
Is it?
The EDA is in here.
Okay,
The EDA is in the agreement.
Yes.
yeah. Okay, so the,
It's the last thing in the agreement, in the packet.
I guess it didn't print. Old
You
school
must
did-
have run out of
Ran
paper.
up ink.
Old
or
school
paper.
didn't
Ink
work.
or paper. Could be ink or paper.
so the,
I'll share with you.
okay, and all this request came from Kimberly, actually, with Whitley Penn, because the dates on the reporting are not quarterly dates, and so they just asked to move the dates where they would be a quarterly report done instead of it being in the middle of the quarter. That way they can match their numbers up better. Because it originally was through September, and so they just wanting to back it up where it's from June to July. And that'll put it in the quarter.
That's all this one is?
Yeah, that's all it is they're just asking to make the reporting easier.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Motion made by Tim Harry, second by Melanie Hillman. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous decision. Thank you, Tracy. Citizen comments on non-agenda items. Being none. Upcoming dates for future ODC board meetings. Next one scheduled for December 12th, Thursday, 2 p.m. Is that good for everybody? December 12th. That's the date we'll do. On entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Tim Harry, second by Kim Melanie Hillman. Do we need a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
There we go.
Never told you I hate those.
That 100 and so, how many times I paid us have any concern?
Most of it's good.